Well, Dragonfolk, with only a couple more cards left to spoil for the new set coming out for Flesh and Blood Dynasty, let's take a little preview into the set and see what it brings to the meta. Welcome on in, Dragonfolk. I hope you're all having a fantastic day. I know I am. Today we're going to go ahead and take a quick look at a bunch of cards that are coming out in Dynasty, the new set for Flesh and Blood, and we're going to kind of tie over what they might mean for the meta itself. Now, I don't know too much about the meta other than Briar and Oldhim seem to be pretty heavy hitters in Classic Constructed right now. Dromai and FaB are also getting pretty high up there on the ladder, but with Dynasty coming out, it looks like there is a significant switch in possible meta focus, and we're going to see exactly why later on in the video. But right now, we are going to go over some of the support that a lot of these classes are going to get in Dynasty, because Dynasty does seem to be a pretty big set in regards to giving new cards, new equipment, new attacks, new defense reactions to current classes that are in the game. So I don't know whether or not this is considered a supplementary set, but to some it seems like it might be. It's adding small new things here and there. Let's just go ahead and check them out and see what we're talking about. So first we're going to talk about two of the new young heroes that are introduced in this set, being the Emperor Dromai of Aether and Yoji Royal Protector. The Emperor is a new dual class hero, being a warrior wizard. They are only available in Blitz currently, but it looks like the Emperor and a bunch of cards that have anything to do with the Emperor seem to be pretty difficult to pull, according to the box openings that I had just watched on YouTube. So keep a lookout for any of these cards that have this gold border on them. They may be more rare than one would think. Then you also have Yoji. Yoji is a new Guardian here. Yoji is, again, only for Blitz, and even though Yoji is Guardian and gets addition to all these Guardian tools, you can simply tell by the kit that comes out here in Dynasty that Yoji's whole thing is based around protection. Very high defensive abilities, while also still having access to the Guardian core that allows him to attack with cards like Dominate and so on and so forth. Got a higher health pool, being a Guardian, and having cards like Buckle, which came out for Guardian during this set. You do have an opportunity for Dominate and being able to even destroy people's already damaged equipment. Now that we're done talking about the two new young heroes, let's go ahead and get into the support for this set for a bunch of the other classes. First, we're going to talk about my girl, Dromai. As of right now, the only thing that Dromai has for her, at least going for her, in this is new Illusionist cards, as well as new Draconic Illusionist Ash cards. 3 Ashes were released specifically in Majestic Rarity, and there very well may be more in the future, but these are Dust from the Golden Plains, Dust from the Red Desert, and Dust from the Shadow Crypts. These 3 allow the specific dragons tied to them, being Thamai, Vinserikai, and Necria, all of them removing Phantasm from their specific dragon counterparts, which is really good in the long run, although I don't see a whole lot of use, maybe sideboarding specifically for the Guardian matchup due to heavy poppers. That could very well see a lot of play there, but most decks don't run a lot of poppers, so Phantasm isn't as big of a problem as it would be with Guardian. And with everybody playing Oldhim right now, that's obviously going to be a bit of an ordeal, so this is something to keep in there if that's what you want to try out. Brute got a fancy new weapon called Rock. It's a once per turn action, 3 resource to attack. Activate only if you have no cards in hand, and damage that would be dealt by Rock can't be prevented. That is 7 damage on an attack. Pretty interesting stuff. You'll also note here that this is the Marvel variant of Rock. I'm not sure whether or not this gets a non-Marvel version of itself, but this is how these Marvel weapons are going to look. So much like how the Marvel cards were looking with Uprising and the dragons being the entire Marvel selection, it seems that the weapons and the equipment are taking the stand here as the Marvel variant of cards. Brute also got a few new attack actions as well as some new just general actions. So not too sure on Brute gameplay. I imagine it's a lot of go, really, really heavy into your attacks. A lot of very high-powered attacks, but of course you have to do things like make sacrifices with your cards, so on and so forth. So I'm not going to get too big into trying to assume I know how to play most of these classes. I definitely do not. So Brutes are things like Rhinar. I believe Rhinar is pretty much like the big Brute there, as well as Levia, I think is Shadow Brute. So those are some of the classic constructed Brutes that you might see these cards in. Of course, there are new Guardian abilities here as well. A new Guardian Shield is actually available here. Of course, the Guardian Shield's a little weird because it comes in with 2 -1 defense counters on the shield. You can just get those back with things like Reinforced Steel, which is an ability that essentially allows you to repair your armor. So, kind of a neat little thing if you plan to take a lot of damage. Maybe there are some cards that are doing damage based on their defense as opposed to their power. Ninja is getting a huge overhaul in this set. I'm not too sure who or what ninja this is specifically for, but they have the addition of a new equipment card for chest called Blazing Yoroi. When this is defending on Chainlink 4 or higher, it has 4 defense, so it's pretty high for it being a chest piece and being able to block. Especially since, Chainlink 4, this is probably going to do really well in regards to going against other ninja or other heroes that like to go high into Chainlink 4s and do Rupture and so on and so forth. But more importantly, the addition of the Crouching Tiger combo kind of like trick for this is really interesting. It's essentially turned the ninja into a monk of sorts. With the Crouching Tiger mechanic, you are essentially looking at a whole bunch of cards that allow you to buff up your Crouching Tiger abilities and utilize them when it comes into your hand. For instance, you have Tiger Swipe, which is if Crouching Tiger was the last attack this combat chain, it has +2 power, go again, and when this hits, create X Crouching Tigers in your banished zone, where X is the number of Crouching Tigers you control. You may play them this turn. They do, of course, cost 0, and each of these Crouching Tigers does get go again, which means you're going to be seeing a lot of hard Chainlink 4 stuff going off with this new ninja build. There are, of course, a few cards that do give additional power to the Crouching Tiger cards because they do not come with, power in and of themselves. And when everything is done and they go to the graveyard, they are removed from the game. So you got to kind of pretend like these cards don't even exist. Warrior is getting a huge upgrade with Dorinthia and Bolton, I believe. They are getting some pretty new stuff. There's a new legendary action that allows you to essentially play Lumina Ascension as though it were an instant. And I don't know too much about Warrior, but I'm assuming that's pretty good. They also came out with a really, really cool new weapon. At least, 2 of them, technically. The Jubil Spellblade is a mythic weapon. It allows you to pay 1 resource and attack. And whenever it hits a hero and you don't control a Spellblade Aegis, create a Spellblade Aegis token. It looks like Spellblade Aegis is essentially just spectral shield tokens, but for warriors. So that's kind of a neat little thing. Protects you from a lot of that arcane damage that might be coming through with wizards. Although, we're not too sure how well this stacks up against things like Dawnblade. We'll just have to see. But more importantly, an axe meta has come to Warrior. With Merciless Battle Axe being added in, you essentially get a new weapon for your warrior hero. And if it attacks, if its power is greater than twice its base power, the attack gains overpower. This essentially is much like Dominate in this sense. So you're going to want to do a lot of things to buff up your attack with your weapon and then go in for the swing. And that way you can kind of overpower your opponent like you would if you were a Guardian. And especially using cards like Cleave, which says your next axe attack this turn gains +4, and when this hits a hero or ally, you may deal that much damage to another ally controlled by the same hero. That will help a lot in regards to destroying things like dragons that Dromai will make. Another huge upgrade for a different class this time around is actually Mechanologist. Mechanologist is able to make a Voltron now, so Dash is going to be pretty excited about that. I believe Data Doll is also getting some fun stuff too, but Data Doll specifically in Blitz, so we're not going to talk too much about Data Doll. But the Nitro meccanoid seems to be a pretty insane thing. A bunch of new equipment that you can essentially put underneath this Nitro meccanoid, and it becomes whatever additional things the equipment provides for Nitro meccanoid itself. You're going to need a lot to get it out. I'm not too sure what the purpose behind it is. I have not played Mechanologist, but it does seem that if you're going to go through all this effort to make something like a Nitro meccanoid, that it better be worth it. So we'll see exactly how far it works into the meta. But, you know, Mechanologist, let me know in the comment section down below how much you guys are excited for Nitro meccanoid. Next, we're going to talk about Ranger. Ranger did get a brand new bow, and the new Ranger mechanics that are kind of added in here are for aim. Aim is essentially a counter that you can put onto your arrows or even, you know, other attacks, but mainly arrows, if I recall correctly. And with the addition of these aim counters, it looks like they essentially give arrow attacks an extra buff. Using things such as Hemorrhage Bore, you're essentially able to destroy a card in an opponent's arsenal if it has an aim counter on it. And using the new bow, you're able to put an aim counter onto any of your arrows that you pull from the top of your deck and put face up in your arsenal. So, pretty powerful stuff. I'm not too sure how it's going to hold up to the other bows that exist in the game, but aim counters seem to do pretty well. It seems like it's what did the community say? It seems like this is kind of the way that Azalea is going to be able to be a little bit more efficient in combat, but we will see how it stands up against Lexi, being probably the better Ranger right now. Next up, Runeblade is actually getting a whole bunch of different things, with the Amethyst Tiara being added in, as well as a new weapon, the Annals of Sutcliffe, and the ever so crazy Looming Doom. If you make a lot of rune enchants, Looming Doom is definitely going to be the one for you. Going to help you get a lot of arcane damage off to your opponent every turn, just simply by existing on the field. So, definitely going to be a fun one. I'm curious to see what multiples of them are like and how well you can passively get that damage off to your opponent. Wizards also got a fantastic upgrade with the Sergeant Aethertide. Not too sure on Wizards themselves, but it looks like obviously they're big on putting that arcane damage out to their opponent. But Sergeant Aethertide definitely seems to do a lot in regards to its abilities, pretty much pumping out additional arcane damage where necessary. And boy howdy, do the Wizards like their arcane damage. And believe it or not, a Marvel card has actually been introduced for none other than Prism, the Light Illusionist. Prism is going to be getting a card called Invoke Soraya. Invoke Soraya is much like an ally that would be like a dragon, right, for Dromai, except this one has its own actions, right? You don't need a weapon specifically to attack with this ally angel, and it's got a bunch of different stuff to banish light cards and deal extra arcane damage, and whenever it deals damage you gain life. This is essentially a life linker of an ally, which is pretty insane considering. Now I doubt that means that you're able to go over your actual life total, but I could be wrong. Not too sure how life works in regards to this, but you may just be capped at your max amount. Although, if I recall correctly, the healing balms allow you to still gain life, so you don't seem to have a cap, which means that this is going to be a crazy way to get that going. It's weird to see Light Illusionist support, though, because Prism is actually on the Living Legend status for Classic Constructed, so I'm not too sure why they started with this specific card and had this in Dynasty of all things, but according to the staff, there is a possibility that Prism is coming back at some point. Obviously, with the addition of a Living Legend format, you're probably going to see a lot of that. But luckily, you can use this in Blitz for right now. And on top of this, a lot of Illusionist cards also came out. You can use these with Dromai as well, but pretty much they are just additional things to get a bunch of spectral shields out. No additional Ash creation here, although Dromai with some spectral shields doesn't sound terrible. I don't think it's the purpose behind her kit, so it seems to be a lot bigger in regards to using it with Prism, which is why a lot of these seem to be very much so for a Prism kit, which is again strange because you can't even play her in Classic Constructed. Then, of course, we do have some of these additional, almost like royal-esque cards is pretty much what they're called. The Crown of Dominion is pretty much the one that is the most looked at here. All it does is make your hero royal, and when you equip Crown of Dominion, you can create a gold token. That gold token can be used to draw you a card and then give you go again. So utilizing that kind of concept is definitely going to be good. You have a bunch of these other Imperial cards, which I imagine are going to be very, very hard to pull, but we obviously are just going to have to wait and see what the purpose of those are, or if they can only really be used with the Emperor himself for some reason. Well, now that I've talked your ear off about all of the new cards that are going to be coming for a bunch of these different classes, let's talk about the real reason people are talking about Dynasty right now, which is the new class that has entered the fray, the Assassin class, Arachne. Arachne is the new assassin that is introduced in this set, and it's pretty much the first of its own kind. Assassin is a new class introduced into Flesh and Blood with a Classic Constructed version and a Blitz version, both young and adult. And the entire point behind the Assassin is very, very interesting. Every Assassin card can be found in Dynasty, so if you're looking to build this class, Dynasty is the set you're going to want to open. The Assassin focuses on banishing cards from the top of your opponent's library, which makes it a deck strategy that's just about everybody in any TCG hates, mill. Along with banishing your opponent's cards, with the keyword contract, the Assassin will get a silver token every time they complete whatever contract is currently in play, such as banishing a blue card from the top of your opponent's deck. Contracts are only in effect as long as the chain is active, so I would imagine the idea is to chain a bunch of attacks together to trigger multiple silver generation effects. Although, there is not a lot of go again with the Assassin's abilities, so this may prove more difficult than one would think. And as for silver, that's going to be what you're going to want a lot of, because the Assassin's equipment actually has really fantastic ability to be brought back after being destroyed by sacrificing 2 silver at the start of your turn. So you have a lot of synergy available with this hero, and I'm curious to see what kind of playstyle Assassin brings to the table. And with that, that is pretty much the entirety of what I know about Dynasty as of this very moment. There are a couple things that are not actually available yet, such as the Fabled card. We don't know what the Fabled card is for this set. There's also another Majestic Marvel that is for Illusionist, I believe, that we have not seen, but just about everything else seems to be pretty, few and far between. They opened up an entire case of Dynasty and only pulled 1 Marvel, a couple cold foils, but overall, not anything super crazy to the crowd's understanding. It seems like a very big supplemental set as far as this goes, like I had said previously, in regards to the fact that classes are getting additional kits to be put into their decks. Although now we have to see how that's going to change up the meta. Is FaB going to go from doing a bunch of Draconic Chain Links in Phoenix Flames to Crouching Tiger? Or are we going to see Katsu make a big revival here? Maybe even see Benji in Blitz doing some crazy stuff. You also have the new Axe stuff for Warrior. Is Axe going to become the preferred weapon for a Warrior? Or is Dawnblade still going to be the #1 selection for everybody who plays it? Also, what's the deal with Prism getting cards? And how is Assassin going to actually match up against everybody else in the meta if he doesn't get go again? We're going to see how things work out as we keep things going. I hope to keep my eyes on Dynasty, as this is probably my first set that I'm really kind of diving deep into and making true content about, other than my original Uprising opening videos. So I hope you, the Flesh and Blood community, can help me out on this journey, and I'd love to hear what you guys think in the comments down below. Are you going to be playing the Assassin class? Are you sticking with the classes you already like? Are you hoping that the Fabled card is a new special dragon for Dromai? Let me know, And while you're down there writing that comment, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel as well if you have not already. You can also join our Patreon in the description down below, but it's absolutely not necessary. It's just a way that if you want to support the channel in a more monetary way, then you can go about doing that. So thank you all so much for watching. I do truly appreciate your support, and I will see you all very soon. Nerd out.